get rid of this I think it's old-fashioned, like near enough's good enough.
Yep.
Like there's too much of that in the industry. Like near enough is not good enough.
Aiming for the 1%er. You know, do 1%er better today than you did yesterday.
Yeah, definitely.
And I think that if the industry took that on board, we'd have a lot better industry.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. G'day guys, welcome back to another cracking episode of Level Up. We are back with the Godfather today. I've been looking forward to this. It's his 5th appearance on the Level Up podcast. And big warm welcome to Craig Stuart from Stewart Homes and Renovations. How are you, mate?
I'm well, thanks, Duayne. Thanks for having us back. And it's always a pleasure to be here, mate.
Oh, mate, I love Craig and I don't know, we've become a bit of a relationship. We talk quite regularly, don't we? We chew the fat and talk about things, and Craig's always reaching out, and it's been really good. But before we get into it too much, so we're putting on the Level Up Experience. So on the 30th of May this year, the Level Up Experience, it is going to be the greatest event that the construction industry has ever seen in Australia. If you're a builder, a tradie, a designer, an architect, a homeowner, anybody that is interested in healthy homes, building science, better businesses, personal development, you name it, you can't afford to miss this event. And actually the Godfather sitting here is actually going to be part of the event that day. And after listening to the podcast and what he's got to offer today, you do not want to miss it, especially if you're a young tradie or apprentice. So make sure you head across to the DuaynePearce.com website to make sure you secure your tickets, because tickets are limited. And can't wait to see you there. But we'll get cracking into this podcast, mate. And the reason we got Craig back today, what was it, mate? The last one we did where we just talked about some tips and hints and things during the podcast, and you just got flooded with people reaching out to you for advice.
Yeah, I was really sort of taken back by the amount of young guys that reached out. And there's still a couple of guys that reach out to me now on different occasions just to ask questions or just some advice. And I was really happy about that, because I think that the younger generation are missing out on so much. It's not being taught to them. So that was sort of next level for me. And I was, just a bit taken back that there was that many people that were keen on the response we got. And you got a massive amount as well, which I thought was like next level. I thought that was great. There's still people that got some passion out there.
I think it was like, I got a lot out of it because it was really good to see that there's still people coming into this industry that are passionate about it.
Yeah.
And not just worried about going and smashing up a frame as quick as they can. So I'm excited about today because Craig's actually put a list together, and I actually think I'm going to learn a lot as well. But mate, let's get into it. Like, what do you got in that book over there? What are we talking about?
All right. Well, it's probably a bit random the way I put it together, but as things come to my head, I'll put some notes down and we'll just put them as a topic, and then we'll start to talk about them.
So basically it doesn't matter what type of trader you are, that you're going to learn something from this.
Yeah, a lot of this is based around carpentry, but other things will come from it, no doubt, as well. So
yeah.
So my first cover off the rank is carborundum stones. So it's just a stone that you buy that we use for finishing the edges of our fibro sheeting. So when you're cutting fibro, a lot of us cut these days FC sheets as cut with dustless cutters and all those sort of things, and you get that burr on there. So that burred edge that's going to go into your plastic molding strips. So the carborundum stone is just like similar to a oil stone, rectangular size stone. But we're using that to put the bevel back on there, put an arris on it. You can straighten edges with it, and those sort of things. So it just gives a nice edge that you can work with it, and you're not fighting it when you're putting it back into your H molds and those sort of things.
A lot of, I've never heard of it. I was always taught in my apprenticeship you got a bit of Besser block or a bit of brick or something, and you rubbed your edges with that. But I would imagine a lot of young carpenters, even plasterers, like people that are working with Villaboard and FC sheets, aren't even doing anything.
No, they wouldn't be. So the carborundum stone will work the same as a Besser block. The main one I've got in my trailer, I've probably had for over 30 years, and like a Besser block will wear.
Yeah.
It doesn't wear.
So where do you buy them?
Just at your tool place, like Bunnings sell them.
Yeah. Yeah, never heard of it.
And Buddies actually make one now that's got a handle on it, where mine is just like a rectangular block, basically.
Yeah.
But my main one that I've got, like I bought a couple others that the boys use, and they drop them and they get cracked and stuff like that. But my main one I've had for over 30 years. It's the same one, and apart from the corners being a bit worn, it doesn't look any different than the day I bought it.
Well, there you go, mate. I've learned something straight off the bat. But it's those little details in that makes a craftsman, because like I see it with new carpenters that we put on. Like they cut the sheets and they don't even do anything with it. Like,
That's right.
at a bare minimum, I was kicked in the ass during my apprenticeship. Like, at a bare minimum, you got your chisel out, you turn your chisel on your edge, and you put your thumb on it, and you dragged your chisel along it, and you took the edge off it.
Yeah, that's right.
You always cleaned your edges before you put them into a joint.
Well, it's making the next step easier.
Yeah.
So if you cut it and it's all bird, you're going to fight it putting it into your H-mold or your PVC joints.
Yeah.
So you're just trying to take that bit of finesse and a bit of care, but there's a reason for that.
Yeah.
So it makes it simpler to do the next stage of it.
And like you say, like these days, you're seeing a lot of people cutting it with bloody duster saws or grinders. Like, people cut it with a grinder and then just smash the side off with a grinder. And a lot of the time, I know, like, I've been to quite a few jobs, and you can tell that people have done it with a grinder because they don't give a fuck. They're rushing it. They smash the grinder along the edge of it, and the grinder's gone too far, like wider than the joining strip. Yeah. And when you look along the joining strip, you see all these little grooves from the grinder.
Yeah, and it shows up in the paint when it's painted.
Yeah,
accentuates it.
Yeah. No, mate, very good one straight off the bat. What do we got next?
So another one while we're talking about fibro. What about nailing feet sheets or nailing fibro? How many times do you see it get nailed and the nails are flush? So if you actually read the James Hardie specification, the back of the nail should be firm against the sheet, but the head should be proud. Because if you punch the head in, potentially it can pop and come down.
Well, as soon as you punch, I think this is an important one. Like, people should be reading the specifications and the install documents of any FC product they're using.
Yes.
Because some of them say that you can punch them in, but most of them say that, yeah, like you say, the back of the nail, the underside of the nail needs to be firm to the sheeting.
Yep.
But because as soon as you punch that head in flush, that's void your warranty.
That's correct, yeah.
So anything ever goes wrong, or the sheet falls down, or the client has a claim, it's going to come back to the builder.
Yeah, 100%. So like you said, read the specification, but a lot of your external claddings and your soffits and that, the head stays proud.
Yeah.
Invisible and things that goes in, because obviously it's going to get sand or tiled or whatever the case may be.
Yeah, but I think it's with ones like this, it's important that tradies understand this, because I've had it in my time where an architect's been on site telling me that they want the nails punched in.
Yep.
And I know, and like back in the day, I was like, oh, whatever. Like, like, if I don't do what you say, I don't get paid. But these days, I'm like, man, I'm not doing it.
That's right.
The specification says this is what has to happen. And so that is what I'm doing.
Yeah.
So it's on me, not on you.
Yeah, 100%. I know of a case, it was about 10 years ago, the builder there was a failure on a cladding sheet on the outside. So they brought James Hardie out, they did the inspection and everything else, and he had too many nails and it failed. So he didn't get warranty because he'd put extra nails in.
Yeah.
And I don't know what the extent was, whether it was 5 or 20 extra nails, but there's extra nails.
Yeah.
So he didn't get the warranty on it, and he had to foot the builder not only to do all the work, but replace the sheets and stuff as well.
Yeah. And I think this is an important part, because a lot of contractors don't give a shit about this sort of thing because they just know that it's on the builder.
Yeah.
But this is why it's so important for builders to be reading specifications, not relying on their contractors to just do it correctly, because if push comes to shove, it's back on the builder, and the builder will have to pay for it.
Oh, definitely. And just print off the install specs and give it to you guys. So we often do that on site.
Yeah.
Bring it up on the phone, tablet, whatever, go through it, read it together.
Yep.
And it's not just me telling them then, there's actually something to back it up, that this is why it needs to be done that way.
Yeah, we had a painter starting a job today. It's our first job in 4 or 5 years that we've used linear board. And so most of our claddings are always hardwood timbers or some sort of chamfer boards or things. So it's just common practice that the painter gaps everything, but you're actually not meant to gap. There's no, we rung the rep about it, and you're actually not supposed to gap the underside of a linear board.
Yeah.
But it is in their specification that before the wall's painted, you can run your eye over it, and if there are any boards that are wobbly or bowed, you can put pressure on it with your palm, and you can use a stainless steel C-brad to pull it in and face fix it.
Yeah.
Like I see so many jobs, like we just thought, oh yeah, the painter's starting, he'll gap the whole job. But we thought, oh shit, we better just check on that. But you got to read your specifications and your install manuals.
It's so important.
Yeah.
Yeah. It doing the job properly, but you're covering yourself as well.
Yeah.
If there's a problem on it, you've done everything as per what they've asked you to do.
Yep.
Yeah.
Righto, mate. What's up next?
The next one I've got down is nailing soffit sheets. Not only the nails, but the actual action. So many guys can't underhand nails,
Yeah.
and they can't get it out of their wrist. They're always trying to do the overhand. So that's another one that sort of gets me going a bit. So it's just, I suppose, learning hammer techniques. We have another thing that on the job, if I start coughing, it means that someone's choking their hammer. The boys know that. They start looking around pretty quick because, you know, if you're using your hammer, make it work for you. Don't you work for it. And it's like I try and teach the apprentices and stuff that using the hammer, it comes from the elbow and it's the flick of the wrist. You see too many guys trying to nail out of their elbow and they complain their elbow's sore because of the action they're using. Let the hammer do the work, you know, let the weight of it do the drop.
You shouldn't feel the weight of your hammer in your elbow.
No, but so many guys nail from their elbow. Yeah. So the elbow bends, but the flick is in the wrist. And that looks after your joints and everything else. Yeah. But yeah, that underhand nailing, a lot of guys just can't get that. It takes practice, but it's so much easier and quicker. And if you've got pine battens that are a bit springy, you can get a lot more accurate and force in your hit. Yep. So.
What I don't know if it's on your list there, mate, but tying in with that, I can't stand that people that can't feed nails through their fingers.
That's further on my list. Yeah. About rolling nails.
Yeah. Yeah. Like you should be able to, like, I got caned when I was an apprentice, mate. Like, and then, but like I've talked about this all the time. It was just me and my boss. Like he would have generally enough planks. Like a lot of the new homes we did were low set, 180, 240 square meters. So like with the planks and the stools that we had on the back of the ute, we could pretty much always do half the house. So like you would, in the first thing in the morning, like you get all the gear out, you run your stools, run your planks around. Yeah. Put your levels across, flick your lines, get everything cut, get all your framing done. And then when it come to Safite sheets, like we would basically cut every sheet for the side of a house. Like we would go along the brickwork, mark the lengths of sheets, do like a storybook for all of our sheets, all the ins and outs around the brickwork, all the vent sheets above windows, and then lay it out. And two of us would basically start at one corner of the house, and it would just go. Like you put the sheet up, both you would get a nail in it. The next one guy would put the cover strip on, and while he's doing that, you would finish putting the last 3 or 4 nails in that sheet. Yep. But you didn't look at anything. Like you put your hand in your pocket while you're still looking up. You picked up half a dozen nails, and while you're finishing one nail off, you're rolling the other nail in your fingers. It's ready to go. Bang, straight up. Next nail's in. Finish that. Like you just went along. Like you weren't even looking at your hands or your pocket. And fuck, I turn up to site now and they're one nail at a time. Put it up. Yep. Next nail. Yeah. Like there's efficiency there. Like you do that all day, every day. Like fuck, you've lost 30 minutes.
Lost a lot of time.
Yeah.
So another one was that do a lot of hand drives, a lot of thin freeze, thick freeze. Well, that's what I call them. So your 3.15, 3.75s. Yeah. So you grab like a reasonable amount of handful, and you'd look at them and you just pull all the ones that were heads down and turn them over. Yeah. So then you could just keep rolling them out of your hand. And before that nail's finished being nailed,
people wouldn't even know what you're talking about, mate.
The next one's in your hand, ready to go.
Yeah. Yeah. We used the 3.15 bullet heads for all of our tacking, all our temporary bracing on our frames, but when you're up on the roof, like there's no. And I personally, I still think it's quicker.
Well, we still do.
Yeah.
So I call them thin threes and thick threes. Yeah. I've got oil containers in the trailer. They've got the tops cut out and the part of the handle's still there. And then across the front is 50 mil, so 2-inch, thin threes, thick threes. And then it goes back into Safite nails, connector nails, and gun nails. And across the back is all the gels. Yeah. And we still do all our braces because you can pull them back out. You haven't got to drive them home. Yeah. You can pull them back out easy. And we're still doing trusses, tacking our trusses on because you got 3 or 4 guys doing trusses. I know these days you got, gas guns, battery guns.
But I still think all your temporary bracing is quicker doing it with like that. Yeah. Like we would have, I think we've talked about this, like you have all your roof braces marked with your already tacked with your nails in it, and you'd lean them at certain positions around the frame. And when you started standing trusses, like you'd just grab those braces, pull them up, smash a nail in, like it was quick as.
It's nice and easy. Yeah. But even you've got to make an adjustment. You got, 5 mil or 8 mil of nail sticking out, you can pull it up, you can move it, you can tap it back in again, put a second one if you have to. Yeah. As soon as you use a gun, you don't get it back very easily, and then you start disturbing everything else. Yep. So, we do a lot of that. Yeah. So while we're on this topic, another one of my pets hate is people that pull gun nails apart. Hand drives.
But people don't even, and look, I'll put my hand up. My business doesn't currently because there's guys on all different sites. Well, I shouldn't say a couple of my tradies do, but when I was on the tools full time and all my apprenticeship, all my subbing years, like you just said, you had all your nails in the ute, and when the day you started the roof truss, you went to the ute, you got a pocket full of 3-inch nails, and you had gun nails in one side, loose nails in the other side, and
clean your bag out for whatever task you're doing. Take the hand drives out, put the Safite nails in, whatever you need to do.
Yeah.
See, another thing people don't realise, or they probably just don't care about it, but a gun nail is what they call a coagulator nail. So it's got the glue on it. So it's designed to be shot quickly with force, so it glues the nail in because it's quite a thin nail, and they don't have any sort of ribs or stuff on them. So the glue actually holds them in, and they don't hold as good if you hand drive them to a hand drive nail.
You're right. Well, there you go. I learned something else.
And that's why they're called coagulated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've talked about this. So one of my jobs as an apprentice, mate, my boss had an empty bucket, and like he would pick up, like when we were roofing or whatever, like, or we'll de-nailing braces, every nail you pulled out would go in your bag, and at the end of the day, you'd empty your bag and you'd put all these nails into this bucket. Yeah. And yeah, it was on rainy days and shit. That was one of my jobs. Like I had to go through that bucket and straighten all the nails out. Yeah.
So yeah, I don't like pulling gun nails apart. I make sure the boys have got hand drives.
Yeah.
And it takes a while to get their mindset to change because they're just so used to doing it. It's actually more expensive than going and buying 5 kilos
100%.
hand drive nails.
Yeah. Yeah. No, really good point. Really good point. Like I said, like anyone listening to this podcast, if you are listening to these things as we're going through them and you want to know more information, or it's not making sense to you, whatever, and you got questions, make sure you reach out to Craig or I, because like it is really, really important that these little skills don't get lost. Because
that's what this is about.
Yeah.
If we want other people to learn from this, it might just trigger a thought pattern, or it might be a different question, but this might trigger something for them.
Yeah.
Started.
Yeah. Don't just become a lazy chippy that has a fucking cordless gun hanging off your belt and uses it for everything. I can't stand it. Like, there's a time and a place for everything. Like, yes, cordless guns have their place, but it shits me that people use them for everything.
Yeah. Well, sometimes it's sort of the point, why do they even have a hammer? You know, because they just don't want to use it. But you become a better tradesman and craftsman if you understand how to use your tools properly.
Yeah. How
they perform and use them how they're meant to be. Then you become better at the end of the day.
100%. All right, mate, let's keep going. What's next?
Okay, another little tip is different scenarios. But let's say you're doing timber fascia and you're nailing your miters together and you're using, galvanized nails. So when you go to put that nail in, I will turn the nail backwards, hit the head in about 3 mil, turn my nail over and drive it in. It does 2 things. It takes the point off your nail, countersinks the head so that when you put it in, it doesn't split your timber. And I use that in lots of places when you've got a softer timber that you're putting a hand drive through it, and it prevents the timber from splitting.
Yeah, right. So it's like a blunt nail. Like it's like, because when you're doing cypress, you use your blunt nails so they don't split. Like,
same sort of thing.
Yeah.
So there's lots of places where you'll use that method, but you're sinking the head in because it's usually looking really good. You drive the last bit and then you get a split out of it. And that's because the head going into the timber, and because the nail's got a point on it, it's made that wedge all the way through, and the head's just enough to split the timber. Yeah. When you do it prior to starting, very rarely will you ever split the timber.
Yeah. Very good. Learn something else? I like it.
Okay. What else? We're jumping all over the place on some of my lists here, but that's okay.
Do you want a pen, mate? Cross them out. Make sure you don't miss anything, because you got some good ones on there.
I think we talked about this once before, but I've written it down again. Folding wedges. And this came up recently because I've just put a new guy on about 4 or 5 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And asked him to cut me some folding wedges. He was a little bit stumped, but I let him go off. Come back with this wedge that was like 80 mil long and about 40 mil to zero. And so then we went through it and talked about it. But how important folding wedges are when you're just trying to, door jams. We were actually doing boxing on concrete. We put pegs in and we needed to bring it over. So we just used the folding wedges scenario for that. But I think that's...
So run people through folding wedges.
So a folding wedge is a long, thin wedge where there's 2 of them that oppose each other. So by putting them together, you're keeping the same parallel thickness. You're not just... A wedge is one-sided and it tends to put a twist in it. Where you do a folding wedge, it will push it across evenly.
Yeah. Yeah, so you're cutting I'd like to hear how you've done this, but like I was taught, like so fit outs, we cut all our own wedges. Like
Yep.
I've never bought them, but can you buy wedges now? I think you can, can't you? You can buy wedges in buckets.
I know that Makita made some years ago. They had little
Yeah.
teeth on them, and then they stopped making them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if you still can or not.
So look, there's heaps of this one as well. So if you're a carpenter out there and you're doing internal fit outs and you're not wedging your door jambs, then you need to fucking learn how to be a craftsman.
Yeah.
You should be going through and wedging everything, like and gluing your wedges. But
Yes.
we did the same. We used wedges for lots of different things, decking, boxing, but the majority was always doing fit out work.
That's where the biggest majority is, yeah.
But we would cut, well, my boss, and actually this definitely doesn't meet workplace health and safety, but we would use either, there'd always be generally offcuts of pre-prime, like fascia or door jam, garage door jam and that sort of material around. And we would cut it into like 200 mil lengths.
Yep.
And then turn it around, like put the grain to the back of the saw stock.
Against the fence, yep.
Yeah. And then use that to cut our wedges. So our wedges were generally always, the boss used to want them 200 mil long.
So you're cutting that right through?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So I do similar, but I'll have a longer bit of timber and then cut the wedges out, and then there's still a series of wedges left behind, and then turn it sideways and then cut it through.
Yeah.
So your hand's further away from the saw. So you're
well, that's why we were using always wider bits of fascia and stuff, because like if they're 230 or whatever long, like you could pretty much cut halfway across it before you.
Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, that's how we would do them, and then all we'd use, like a lot of time we're doing fit out, it'd be just out of your door jam material, like
Yeah.
Explain again how you're doing it.
So I've got let's just say I've got a bit of timber that's 500 mil long.
Yeah.
Push the end grain towards the fence.
Yeah. Oh, and you're standing back behind it.
And
yeah. So yeah.
So then I'm, cutting the wedges, but only every second one comes out.
Yeah.
So then you turn it sideways.
Yeah.
Against the fence and then cut across it.
Yeah.
And then you've got the other half of them.
Yeah. No, I get that. Yeah. Do that.
And then you might just cut 20 mil off so it's got a square end again, and then you go again. So you're just keeping your hand further away from the saw.
Yeah.
If something happens, it rides up over or something along those
lines. There you go. Learn something again. So this is valuable, mate. Learn things.
So when I was an apprentice and went to our TAFE, there was 10 in our class, and they told us that 7 of them potentially would lose a finger. Well, I'd like to say to date, I still have all 10. And I do know a couple of guys that have lost some.
Yeah, well, not from work, but...
Yeah, that's right. Yours is different related, but... so obviously being conscious and keeping further away from the saw.
Yeah. Yeah, but wedges, like... People just... it's like we talk about all the time, you got to know the why.
Yeah.
Like most people just are smashing it out and don't understand the why. Like, why are you putting wedges in your door jams?
Well, I think that's why I said folding wedges and not just wedges, because the wedge, you slide in the door jam and it's really only packing at the outside point. When the folding wedge goes in, you're keeping a parallel packer all the way across, and you can bring it out by tapping the 2 wedges together. You can bring it out or releasing them and taking it back. So there you got full support all the way across.
Yeah.
And that's sort of why I thought I'd raise the topic on a folding wedge.
Yeah, because with your when you're installing your doors, like you really should only be putting a tack down the top and bottom, one in the middle, and then using your wedges to get it all perfectly straight, shouldn't you? And then once it's perfectly straight, nail and glue your wedges.
Yeah. Yep. And then cut the excess off.
Yeah. Yeah. That was so that was generally something we would do on the first, like, one of the guys would be installing the door jams. I'd cut all the wedges, give them to him. He would go around, install them, smash them all in, glue them, nail them. And like by the time you worked your way around the house, you went and did all your window architraves. 9 out of 10, the glue would have gone off a little bit, and then you'd have to run around with a handsaw. Like these days, everyone's using saver saws or multi-tools. Yeah. You'd run around with a handsaw, you'd trim all the edges of the wedges off, and then do your architraves around your doors and windows, or doors. Yeah.
Installing door jams while we're on that topic. I use thin threes to put them in place.
Yeah.
So you put them in, you nail them in. You can leave 10 mil or so hanging out, put all your wedges in, and then that still gives you the ability that they'll hold from moving sideways, but it still slides in and out on that nail. Once the wedge is all set in position, nail it home, punch it off.
Yeah. Yeah.
Probably old school. A lot of guys want to just shoot it on with a finish gun, but it's stronger and gives the ability that we can still adjust it a bit throughout setting the door up.
Well, up until recently, it's always been T-nails.
Yep.
Like I don't, and I know, like apparently they're not making T-nails anymore.
No, they're not.
Which I think is terrible. So yeah, we might have to go back to the thin threes because I don't believe a finishing nail is strong enough to be holding a door jamb.
No, it's
like
not.
people are using just like brads, or some people use the thicker gauge angle nails, but you got a door flapping around the breeze and just relying on those bloody nails. Like there's not a lot holding the door in.
No, you got to rely on when they slam. It might not be someone do it. The window could be open. The door slams. Like how's it going to stay in place? Does it start moving and those sort of things?
Yeah.
So talking about nails and finish nails, we're doing a job at the moment where we got internal VJ, just your Craftwood VJ Easy Craft going in.
Yeah.
So when you read the specs on that, you're supposed to nog it at 700mm centers horizontally. So we just use a bit of pine batten. And
on your joins?
No.
Or everywhere?
Everywhere.
Even if your studs are 450 centers?
Correct. You're still supposed to nog horizontally and glue it off.
Yep. We glue it all. I've never read the 450 centers.
700.
Or 700 centers horizontally.
Horizontally.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're supposed to nog it horizontally throughout the shoot. So we put that in with pine batten. So as you know, trying to shoot pine batten with a framing gun, it splits and goes everywhere. Yeah. So we put that in with a finish gun. And the new guy I said to start with recently, he was doing some. And I went and had a look at what he did, and I think he had 2 in the face and 1 in the top. And I said to him, no, I want more nails. And then when I broke it down to him and said to him, well, if you put 1 framing nail in there, take the thickness of that compared to the thickness of your finish nail, we need 6 or 7 finish nails. So put 4 in the top, 4 in the face, 3 in the top, punch them in, because I just got it and I could twist it. And I just explained to him, you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
But I just sort of tell him my logic behind it. I'm happy to use a finish gun, but we need to compensate to get enough amount of nail in there for holding power.
Yeah. That, well, there you go. I learned something else. Well, I've never, like we've just done recently, I didn't read about the 700mm center, but like you prime, like on external walls, you got to prime the back of your VJ before you put it on.
Yep.
Like I'm sure there's a shitload of chippies out there that aren't doing that.
Oh, they think the front's prime, bit of glue. We did a job 12 months ago we took on from somebody else. We'd done work for this client before. They needed something done really quick and cheap. And I explained to her later that doesn't go together. And they didn't even put glue on them.
Yeah.
They just put pins in them.
Yeah.
And we had to take them off and redo it. And she was horrified because she'd bought the material and we had to strip it off and redo it. And some got damaged and those things, but there's virtually no glue, but a few dobs here and there.
Yeah.
So, once again, it comes back to installation specifications.
You got to read your specifications. Like, seriously, guys, if you want to call yourself a tradie or a craftsman, then you need to do this shit. What else we got, mate?
Another one I got on here while we're sort of talking around doors is hinge positions of internal doors. And I know a lot of people these days make them the same distance top and bottom, but this is the way I was taught, is that you come down 200 for the top hinge and you come up 250 for the bottom. And it's got to do with your peripheral vision. So when you look at it, it looks balanced. If you actually see a door that it's exactly the same distance top and bottom, it actually looks out of balance. And I know it's just a personal thing, but that's just something I was taught and I just instilled it in all my guys and that's the way we do it. But it just, for some reason, it looks better.
Yeah.
There's nothing right or wrong about it.
That's how I was taught, 200 down, 250 up. But to be honest, I didn't understand the reasoning for it.
Yeah, it's got to do with when you're standing back from the door and the vision of the top hinge and the bottom hinge, the way our eyes work, it looks right. When you see one where they make them exactly the same, because a lot of these days it's just 200 top and bottom.
Yeah.
Whenever I see that, to me, that just looks totally wrong.
Yeah. Yeah, and then, not enough hinges, mate. Like, as soon as you go over 2,100 doors, should instantly have 3 hinges on it.
Yep.
So many, I hate walking through jobs and, they haven't got 3 hinges on doors. It's just, come on, guys, what are you doing?
Yeah. Once again, they probably don't know the why, the reason behind it.
Yeah.
Sharpening chisels. That's another one I've got written down here.
Sharpening anything, mate.
Well, sharpening anything, but there's a reason why they're done on a grinder, a bench grinder, and not a 4-inch grinder. Okay.
It shits me when you see people sharpening their chisels with. My team don't do it. They a couple of my guys have actually mine's in here somewhere in the shed. The like you've probably got one. What's the good brand? Bloody spinning wheels
With the water wheel.
Yeah, the water wheel.
Yeah.
Like a good one, $700, $800.
I think mine's about $1,100 or something.
Yeah.
But I've got a bench grinder in the back of my trailer that swings out, and then we just get a container and put water in it. But it's all set up for sharpening chisels on the site. So as soon as I start sharpening my chisels, all my boys drop all their chisels on the guard of the trailer. But having a hollow ground chisel, so that from your beveled edge going up is hollowed, it's the way it brings the shavings of the timber, and it actually flows better cutting the grain. When you're sharpening it straight on a 4-inch grinder, you've got a bevel on the end, but it's flat. It's on the same plane. So it's really important to get the hollow ground because it makes them work better. And then depending on the timber you're using, the softer the timber and the more open the grain, the pitch, so about 33 degrees is a good average. But if you're doing, say, red cedar, you drop it down and make it flatter so that it cuts through the grain better and not tear it.
Yep.
And then obviously when you're honing a chisel, like a lot of guys just can't fathom how that works, the honing of them, it changes by about 3 degrees.
Yeah.
So you've got your main grind and then the little pitch on the end and then stropping it. So I actually strop a chisel in the palm of my hand. I'll put a little bit of terps in the palm of my hand and strop it on that. You can do it on a bit of leather, but taking that burr off the front and the back, the difference that makes to be able to cut timber nice and clean is incredible.
Yeah.
This is the difference that makes in it.
Well, that's definitely a lost art, mate, because it's throwaway society. People just, like a lot of, unless you buy a really good quality set of Stanley chisels or something, like, and pay good money for them, a lot of the cheaper ones, the metal's just shit, and you can't sharpen them. Like, they're garbage.
That's right.
Like, I've still got some of my original chisel sets up there in the leather bloody binder.
In the roll.
And, mate, they've been sharpened that many times. Like, some of the main stem's only like 20 mil long.
Yeah.
But it's good quality steel. But people just these days don't understand sharpening.
No. Well, see, I've got like 2 sets of chisels. I've got the set that my parents bought me when I started my apprenticeship, which I use only for fix-out work. That's all they get used for.
Yeah.
And then I've got another set which I use for general work, and obviously I've got a couple run on my nail bag. But yeah, keeping them sharp. And if you're doing them properly, it's a touch-up. It's not like a big grind all the time. Guys just let them go until they look like they're bloody serrated. Yeah. And then it takes ages to do them. So my oil stone doesn't get oil on it.
Yeah.
I use terps.
Yeah.
Because terps evaporates where oil clogs up your stone. So over a period of time, you can actually boil your stone in a drum on a fire and clean all the oil out of them.
Yeah, right.
And reuse them.
Yeah.
So after time, they get clogged up and they don't work properly. And so one of the reasons I like to use the terps is because you got to keep putting it on, but you see it evaporating away. So therefore your stone lasts a lot longer. So my stone I've got was my grandfather's. When I started my apprenticeship, he gave it to me, and I still use it today.
Yeah.
It's in my trailer and gets used all the time.
Yeah, if you look after it all, tools should last. If you're paying good quality money for good quality tools, you should have them for a very long time.
Yeah.
But it shits me, mate, with this throwaway world. Like right through my apprenticeship and my subcontracting days, and in my early days of my business, like I saw him, he was Kevy, like sharpen it. Like he drove around a little minibus, had all the seats have been ripped out. He had a bench down both sides, and like you'd book him in, he'd rock up to your site, and you would literally just dump all your leather, like your circular saw blades. I've got multiple of them, like some are in the shed here, some are in the shipping container, but we had a pouch for circular saw blades, a pouch for drop saw blades, a pouch for hand saws, a pouch for your chisels. Yep. Like you would literally dump this pile of shit in this little minibus, and then he would be on your job site for whatever, an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, sharpening all your tools. And we used to get that done probably 2, sometimes 3 times a year, maybe.
Yep.
And then the rest of the time was up to us to do maintenance. So, but like, man, I got kicked in the ass. Like I was talking to my team about the other day, like when we're doing our wall framing and undercutting our plates halfway through so that when we get it finished, you're not hitting the ground with a saw. And like, except for a couple of the older ones, they're all laughing at me like, "Oh, fuck it, we just use a saver saw." Like,
Yeah.
Like, we used to go around and it taught you to hold your handsaw level, not bum down or toe down. And
Yeah.
but yeah, so many people these days just don't understand the importance of maintaining your tools.
Oh, well, I've got another note further back. Sharp tools work for you, and they're safer. Where the blunt tool is harder to use and it's more dangerous.
Mm.
You know, so if you talk, power saws, if you've got blunt blades, you're pushing that much harder.
Yeah.
Especially with a battery gear, you're working your saw that much harder, so it doesn't last as long. You don't get as good a cut, and you run more risk of having an injury because it might bind up or kick back.
Yeah.
Whereas if you just change the blade, get a sharp blade and put in it, and because there's still people like saw doctors around the place, they don't travel, but there's still saw doctors you can drop saws off and get them sharpened.
Yeah.
But it just makes your life so much easier, the job better, looks after your tools longer.
Yep. Oh, mate, they'd sharpen them, they replace tips that they need to replace, and like drill bits, like you sharpen all your drill bits, like everything lasted. Like these days, people just throw shit out. Yeah. Well, I haven't bought one for a while, but can you even buy a good quality handsaw anymore, or is it just all throwaway shit?
Well, that's another note I've got in here. So funny you say that. So in all my saws, and I probably run about 10 in the trailer, and I've got more in the shed. One of those saws was bought brand new when I was an apprentice, and I've still got it today. I've had to replace the handle on it. All my other saws have been bought at either the markets or second-hand stores, taking them home, a bit of steel wool, wet and dry, whatever, cleaned them up, taking them to the saw doctor, and had them resharpened and recut. So you can actually repoint a saw.
Yeah.
So you can change
a good quality saw.
A good quality saw.
Yeah.
Spear and Jackson, Diston, all those sort of things. And like I play a tune on my saws when I get to work, and that's how you can tell like how good the steel is in them.
Yeah.
But just using a good sharp saw, we were doing some stuff the other day, and the boys have got these throwaway jobs, and they're really short. And I was explaining to them and like giving a bit of a lesson to the new guy about using a handsaw. And I just said to him, there's no way I could do it because the stroke's too short. And I was explaining to him about the length of your stroke. The longer you can make your stroke, the less cuts you have to make, the less you got to work so hard, and does a better job. And because we were cutting like obtuse miters, and like the saw would only cut so far, and then we had to cut the rest of it out, and trying to get their little saw to follow the line of the saw blade and everything else. And that's what I said to him. I said, just go and find a couple of cheap ones and get them cleaned up. Because when you're using the saw, if you've got a slightly rounded action, when you're cutting like big timbers, you're cleaning out your sawdust. I'll explain all that to him, and using as much as your saw blade as possible instead of doing those piddle short strokes all the time.
Yeah.
And it just does a better job, but it makes your life so much easier.
Yeah.
And once they understand why you're telling them that stuff and they understand how it works, I didn't have a saw on site that day, but I showed them another day, and the penny drops. And then they see. Yeah, I think those little disposals are great for plumbers cutting PVC pipe.
That's about it.
That's what I think they're good for.
Or gyprock.
Or gyprock, yeah.
Yeah, no, it's again, to me, it's not just about doing a quality job. Like your tools are part of what makes you a tradesman or a trade.
Tools are an extension of you.
Yeah.
And I've known like for years, like you got a new guy will come and start with you. All you got to do is look at his tools. If he's got to pull half his toolbox out to find the chisel on the bottom of the toolbox, his work can't be any good because he doesn't have the quality tools, or he's not looking after his tools.
Yeah.
And the other thing I look at too is if they respect their tools, I respect my tools.
Yeah.
If they don't care about theirs, there's no way they're caring about my tools as well.
Yeah.
And that's a big indicator.
100%.
And I've had clients over the years have complimented me on my setup on my trailer and things like that because they see that you take care. But even end of the day, and you're packing up, and there's a hole that's empty, something's missing.
Yeah.
Where it's all higgledy-piggledy.
No, you're just throwing shit in bloody toolboxes.
You don't know where it is. A week later, like, oh, where did I use that last? Whereas at the end of the day, it's really quick and easy.
Yeah. Yeah, awesome, mate.
Another little tip, getting back to drill bits. Do you know how to find the accurate pitch of your drill bit when you sharpen it?
No.
Put two hexagonal nuts together. And the gap in the middle, the V in the middle, is 135 degrees. And that's what your drill bit should be sharpened at.
Right.
So obviously you taper it back, your leading edge and everything. But the actual point of the pitch is to put two hexagonal nuts together, put the drill bit in there. That's spot on. That's how you know you've got the right angle on both sides.
And then how do you know that?
Oh, no, some old bloke told me years ago. And so this old bloke's now telling other people.
And it works. Like you've tried that, and that's what
Yeah.
that angle is good cutting.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
So, obviously when you're doing steel, heavy, thick steel, you change it a bit, or if it's really soft timbers. But majority of your drill bits, you just go and buy a set off the shelf. That's what they are.
Yeah.
And they will work for 99% of stuff that we're trying to do.
Yeah.
Mm.
Look, mate, there'd be so many tradies out there these days that just don't have a clue how to sharpen shit. And as soon as it's blunt, they'd be throwing good tools, good bits in the bin.
Yeah.
Like you can sharpen, if most drill bits, even shitty ones, you can sharpen.
You can bring them back.
Yeah.
We've been on jobs where we've broken them, and then I'll sharpen them for the boys.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of cutting back, but you can do it.
Yeah.
Because there's a good long bit, and they broke 30 mil off the end of them.
Yeah.
You start buying 12, 14 mil bits, they're not cheap.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yep. Nah, very good.
Cogging rough sawn timbers. So if you're building decks and you've got rough sawn timber, so cogging out your bearers and your joists for getting consistency of height. You would have done that as an apprentice?
Cogging, we cut the bottoms out.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So setting up your guide on your saw, set up the fence. If they're 150 mil being rough sawn, they could be anywhere from 148 to 152.
Yeah.
So you just set it up at 148 and do a little check on each end so that when it goes in place, you've got a more consistent, even height right the way across. And then when you come to straighten them, it's a lot easier to run a planer over them and sort of thing.
So many people wouldn't know that, mate, because LVL shit just turns up on site these days and it's pretty consistent. But
yeah,
you should always be checking the thicknesses of your timber. And if my opinion is if any structure at all you're building externally should be hardwood.
Correct.
So you definitely shouldn't be, even if they're LOSP treated external grade. My personal opinion is that you should not be using it externally, but use your hardwood. And like you said, hardwood is very rarely the same size. So
yeah, that's right.
So I'm sure you're the same. So we were always taught like you're starting on the site, you would split the pack and you would quickly just run your tape over it and you'd find the smallest piece.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, from that smallest piece, that's what you'd work all your thicknesses out.
Yeah. So they all go in the same. Just makes it so much easier to get it straighter.
Yeah.
Less planing, more consistent.
Yeah. Yeah, because most people, it shits me when you see it. Like I hate, like you see all these things on Instagram where people finish a floor system, they slide the level across it, but a few of them you see them, they're just flat out with the planer, like planing the tops off. Like I don't know, I'm keen to hear your opinion on this. Like I don't think you should be planing the top, maybe a little bit to take some bows out.
Yep.
But you should be checking your timber for the finding the narrowest board.
Yep.
And then housing, like you said, checking all your ends out so that where it sits on the bear, it's taken out of the bottom, not out of the top.
Yeah, that's right. I agree with that totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. So really the straightening or the planing of the top is to take a few little humps out that are between your bearer points.
Yeah.
In this deck we did recently, we actually had 3 points. So pole plate at the wall, middle bearer, outside bearer. So the middle's a little bit more difficult, but mark it all out,
Yeah.
Run one on each end, run a string line through so we can measure all the middles and then check them all out to suit. But we had to cog some LVLs recently on a job.
Yeah.
Because they had too much variance in them.
Yeah, right.
Mm.
Well, it pays to check everything, I guess, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I don't know if it's right or wrong, but my boss was always of the opinion that you shouldn't be planing the tops off your timber because as soon as you're planing the tops off your timber, you're exposing it to moisture and like especially if it's a treated hardwood, like you're taking all that treatment off the top where it's most important.
Mm.
So that treatment should be on top. Like obviously these days you're using deck protectors and those types of things, but to me to keep that treatment layer on top is really important.
Well, it is on hardwood, especially because it only goes in a couple of mil.
Yeah.
And if you're not cogging it out to keep it the same plane and you're planing 3, 4, 5 mil out of it, you've lost all your treatment.
Yeah.
And then if you are doing that and even your cut ends, you should be reapplying your treatment back on.
Mm. Yeah. Like for sure. It definitely doesn't happen all the time, but like you should have those cans of spray and shouldn't you? Like again, reading the install guys, like all cut ends, plain timber, like you should be reapplying.
Yeah, that's what we try and do. And as you said, there's the odd time it doesn't get through, but then 99% of the time, if we're doing external, it's getting some sort of paint, a primer on it, whether that be a clear product or a paint product.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
So probably on that note, So we use oil-based primer for 99% of everything we do.
Yeah.
Externally, it's very
even on your pre-primed pines, balustradings and things.
That's a topic we'll touch in a minute.
Yeah,
that's another one. Yeah. So for the oil-based primer, it's always a 2-coat system. Our first coat will have about 5% terps, 7% terps in the first coat. So it gets a light sand or an arris or whatever it needs to have on it. That gets applied. So the terps actually makes it draw and penetrate into the timber.
Yeah.
So now your paint is actually trapped in the grain and not on top of it.
That's old school. Like, not many people. We do that on all of our jobs. Most people that would not have a clue. They're just opening the tin of paint and slapping it on.
Yeah. And then you might get a light sand because it all furs up and everything else, off that first coat. And then the next coat that goes on is straight oil base. Now, depending on the...
Talk to your rep. Read your
definitely. Yeah.
That is old school. We still do it on most of our stuff, but I know that, well, we have spoken to some reps and they're like, no, you shouldn't be putting the terps in it, but it works. Like, if you don't put terps in it, it does not sink in, especially to hardwood.
Well, here's a good example. Is about 4 years ago, we did a job where we put a big deck on the back, had 140 square Merbau posts. They were painted, had a big sandwich panel roof over the top. During the construction, the post started to split the laminations. So it was opening up. So I spoke to my timber rep, and then the ITW rep, where the posts come from, came to site. The deck was about 1 metre off the ground. The first thing he did was put his head under the deck to look at the end grain of the post, because we'd painted all the checks and the end grain. They'd all had the two coat system of the way we did the oil-based primer.
Yeah.
And they already had their first coat of top coat on there. And because we'd done that system, we got full warranty on those posts. And he said to me, if you hadn't have done that, and I explained to him about how I'd done the terps with the oil-based and everything else, and he was rapt. He was impressed. He said, yeah, we can't fault your system that you've done. And so we got warranty on the posts.
Yeah.
If it wasn't for that, or that end grain of that check hadn't been painted, we were getting zilch.
Yeah.
And that was the first thing he did, was just looked at the end of that post to see whether it was sucking moisture up in the bottom of the post or not.
Yeah. Well, again, a lot of people don't prime shit. Like, they just think that they don't understand the why. Like, you've got to keep moisture out of timber. Yeah. But you do. You might have it in there somewhere else, but another trick of yours is you wrap your post with plastic, don't you?
The Glad Wrap.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Explain that one.
So the reason behind it is it holds the moisture, so it builds like a little ecosystem. So we'll do our posts, we'll prime them, give them a sand, put them up, put the beams in, whatever we've got to do, and then just go to Coles and buy a 100-metre roll of Glad Wrap and start at the top and fully wrap them up, or start at the bottom and work your way up and wrap them up. And what it does is, on certain days, you'll see there's a little bit of humidity in there. So it reduces the shrinking and cracking, especially on posts that are pointing towards the afternoon sun, because you're keeping the moisture in there, and they shrink at a slower rate because of the moisture consistency, and we get great results out of it.
Yeah. Just a shitload of plastic that goes back in the garbage.
Well, unfortunately, yeah.
But timber's a funny one. Like, you've got to look after it, because it does get affected a lot by humidity, moisture in the air.
Well, it's a living, breathing product. Yeah, we might have it as a bit of timber, but as a tree, so it still has movement. And that's something that you've got to understand, is that even though you've cut it down and milled it, it still will expand and contract. So you're trying to work with the parameters and minimize how much movement you have. So the more you can seal it and make it retain its moisture and all those sort of things, the better off it is.
Yeah, definitely.
So pre-prime timbers.
Yeah.
So what's your take on a piece of pre-prime timber? So the priming on the timber, what's it for?
Look, I'm not a fan of pre-prime timber, but we have to use it these days in a lot of scenarios. Like, you're beating on your sophites and a lot of your decking handrails and those types of things. There is definitely a lot of areas I refuse to use it. Like, we pay extra for hardwood. I won't use a pre-prime timber post.
No, me either.
But look, I don't know a lot about it. The little bit I know is that it's really only a temporary product. It's only there to protect the timber until it gets to site, and then it's up to us to make sure we prime it again.
Correct. So your pre-prime timber, is transport primer.
Yeah.
So it's to retain the timber's moisture from manufacturer till it gets to site. So not only should you cut it and prime your ends, but you should sand the timber and prime it again.
Yeah. I've had arguments with painters, mate, that try and tell me that it only needs 2 coats because it's already primed.
Me too. Me too.
Yeah.
But it's a transport primer. That's purely what it's for.
Yeah.
It's to hold the timber stable until you get it to utilize it.
Yeah.
So we will give it a light sand. Depending on the size of the job, what we're doing, the painter might come in and do it, or we might do it ourselves.
Yeah.
But bare minimum, let's just say we're doing a handrail that's got pickets in it. The ends and the bottoms will all be done so that they could then do the rest of it from that point on.
Yeah, 100%. We do the same thing. And priming is something that I'm on my team's back all the time. Like I tell them, like, put it on thick.
Yeah.
Like when you're putting paint on end grain, I don't want to turn up to site and still be able to see the end grain. Like, you want to, and if you got to hit your brush on the sides and knock the runs off, then so be it. But and if you have to, before you go and nail it into the handrail, give it another hit. But you cannot get enough primer on the end grain. No.
So as end grain in that case, we might do 3 coats.
Yeah.
2 coats on most things, but that sort of thing, so we'd get 3 coats.
Yeah.
As you said, it needs to be sealed. And I don't know how many times you get called to go and do a job somewhere and someone's handrail, it's got normal bright finish nails in the pickets and no paint. And the people are like, oh, this cost us $10,000 5 years ago. And it's, can you repair it? And it's like, no, I can't repair it. You've got to take it out and redo it.
Yeah.
And you feel for them, but it's just because someone...
poke it with your finger and your finger goes through it.
Yeah, it's all rotted out and everything else.
So another one with the pre-primed is, I'm assuming a lot of people probably won't know this one, but if the house is getting painted what the company classes a dark color, and this it doesn't just apply to pre-prime, it applies to a lot of front and like external doors now, timber doors and windows. But you actually have to use a different primer. But if you're painting a house a dark color and you're using pre-prime timber for anything, even cover buttons over FC sheeting, they actually have to be primed with a heat-reducing primer before you apply your normal primer and your other coats of paint.
And you can also get heat-reducing paint in those dark colours now too.
Yeah. Yeah, like they'll, and again, I don't even know how we come across this one. Like, it's like 5-6 years ago, but actually I think it might have been my supervisor, Todd, was reading the specs and brought it up, and we had a discussion with the painter, and now it's become a stand in all of our jobs. But there was something in the fine print that if there's ever a warranty claim on pre-prime timbers and they come out and it's painted a dark colour and you can't prove that you've followed their priming process, there's no warranty on it.
No, that's right.
Yeah, there's a lot to know.
Yeah, there's a lot to know. Yeah, definitely. So this one probably goes back to before we had compound miter saws. Just got the old Makita drop saw. But when you're doing a lot of things, but skirting or even mouldings and stuff, and you wanted to get that little undercut, so your miter might go together, but it's touching at the back and not the front. So just laying your pencil on the saw bench, just to be able to elevate that little bit, and then just sort of be able to get a bit of an undercut on it. So even though we've got compounding miter saws, I still do that because it's probably a habit, but it's quick and easy just to get that little bit of a taper back on your cut lines.
I'll put my hand up, mate. Like the fit out on the current house we're living in 2 years ago is the last fit out I've done, and I still did it then, but I was always taught that you undercut your miters on your skirtings and things like especially where you're like not so much on a big wall, but like you get around a kitchen area or little nibs where the plasterers are feathered the corners out a little bit and you're blowing it out, like your corner's not a true 90 degrees. So always you might cut one at 45, but the other one might be cut at, could be anything, might be 43, might be 46, but you cut them so they're tight. You don't just cut them at 45 and the front's opened up and I cut at 45, that's what it is. Like you adjust your miter to make sure all your joints are tight.
And go back to the saw if you have to and make the adjustment. And put the glue in there. So talking about skirting and other places that I do it too, but generally anywhere that's sort of that finished timber. I know we don't do much timber fascia these days, but there's still a bit happens on that miter. So we talked last time about arrasing timber, why we arras it so the paint sticks. So on your skirting, it comes together, you've got a sharp miter, So I'll use the flat of my chisel out of my nail bag and put it against the corner and tap it with my hammer and roll it around and actually put a little rounded edge on the miter of everything.
Yeah, so, you want to get that same little bevel that you have on a bit of DAR.
Yes.
Yeah, I was the same, mate. That was literally the last thing you'd do. You'd finish the fit out, clean the job out, sweep it all out, and then you'd run around the house with your chisel, tapping it on the skirting, taking all your sharp edges off.
Take all the sharp edges off. It doesn't break as easy. It paints better.
Yeah.
And it's just a little trick and it doesn't take long. But you can also sort of close those miters a little bit if you need to as well.
Yeah.
You know, you might have a little fine line there. It'll bring them back together, tighten them up.
Yeah. They're like, I don't know if I'm just a very particular person, but they're the little things that I believe finish a job off. It shits me when you walk around a job and you can, like, a lot of people think that paint hides things or paint will fix it, paint will finish it. Your joints should be in your timber work, should be as if, my personal opinion is that everything should be getting done as if it's not getting painted.
As if it's been stained.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you should be aiming for perfection.
Yeah.
Don't be expecting that the paint is going to come along and gap things, bog things, patch things. So
I think unfortunately we have this attitude that she'll be right, the plasterer will fix it. She'll be right, the painter will fix it. She'll be right, the tiler will fix it. I had this discussion with a guy yesterday who's an ex-tiler, and we're talking about frames. And I say to my team, our frames will be covered, but they'll be seen by the electrician, the plumber, your leading guys for any communication, your aircon guys. All those guys see your frames. Owners will see them different times when they walk through. When the house is finished, no one sees it. But you want to be able to sleep well at night and have pride in what you've done. But those guys that have seen it will talk. And they will say, oh, don't use those guys because we were there doing the roughing and the noggins were falling out.
Yeah.
So have the pride in that job.
Yeah, it shits me, mate. I seen an Instagram story the other day on a young fellow that I've had a little bit to do with, and he was commenting on another video that someone else had posted about apprenticeship, some work apprentice had done, and there was some nogs that weren't, like, they're a bit chipped and weren't straight and twisted and shit. And his comment was, oh, she'll be right. That's all covered in plaster. No one sees it. Like, to me, that comment completely changed my view on that person.
Yeah, definitely.
Because that's not, like, your job. If you want to be classed and considered as a quality tradesman or a craftsman, you finish your framework as if it's going to be on show every single day.
Yeah, definitely. Like, and if you go back to our grandfathers who were building Queenslanders, who only lined on the inside, all their frames, their braces checked in, window sills, their window heads, all mortise and tenon in, it was all seen.
I tell my team, mate, I don't give a fuck if it's hidden by cladding, plaster, whatever. I do not want someone coming into this house in 20 years' time and doing a renovation and saying, look at these fucking dodgy builders.
Yeah.
But that's my theory on it.
I'm the same. I'm the same. Just leave it. Hey, do as you would in your own house.
Yeah.
Try and instill that in my boys. But yeah, no, it's important, I think.
Yeah.
This is a little one, probably a bit of a bone of contention between people, but tying off string lines. I'm not big.
Jeez, we're covering a lot of ground here, mate.
I'm not big on the 6 half hitches that they put in the bloody end of the lines.
Yeah.
And I believe, this is in my view, I was taught it was 7 twists. So double your line over and do basically 7 twists in your string line. If you put it on your nail, put as much tension on it as you want, pull it back tight. If you roll the line up and hang the line on it, it shouldn't come undone. And that's what I do all the time.
Yeah.
Because when you go to undo it, you just pull the line the opposite direction, it slides off.
Yeah.
And I just think it's an art that's being lost because I'm trying to pull lines down and someone's put 6 half hitches and they've gone under and over and under and over, and you end up pulling the bloody nail out because you can't get it off.
Yeah.
It's a simple thing.
Yeah.
And
I'm the same.
Maybe I'm a bit pedantic about it, but I think that if you teach the guys to do them properly, this shouldn't be a problem. Yeah. It relies on friction. Yeah. That's the way that's how I was taught. Yeah. And we never did half hitches.
Well, I never did a half hitch either. And I actually had the bag on last weekend. I was at the farm. I marked out bloody 2.5, 3 odd Ks of fences and yards and shit. And so I did it all on my own. So I was pegging shit out, and I had to put nails in tape so I could do me 3, 4, 5s and everything. But like I actually, so I went and bought 6 new string lines, and I bought I think it's a 500 meter roll, because like some of the runs I pulled were, I think the longest one I pulled was like 380 meters.
Yeah, wow.
And so, mate, that's all I was doing. Like, I put it from the boundary fence. I put it around one of the big round
Strainer
posts.
Yep.
And then I put star pickets in and drove a 12-foot or 1,200 star picket like 500 into the ground.
Yep.
And yeah, I was literally twisting this thing like 7 or 8 times. So that's what we were taught. I was taught to do 7 or 8 times.
Yeah.
So you twist it on your finger, hook it over the post, and because they're so long, like the stretch in the string, I was just reefing on these things.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I was taught you do your twist, you put it over the post, you reef on it, you get it tight, and then you loop your line back over the post twice. And that was it.
Yeah.
We didn't tie anything. No half hitches, none of that. And mate, I was putting a huge amount of pressure on them because they were so long and it was a little bit windy. And then I'd side it, I'd walk along, put a peg in, then go back, side it, make sure everything's all nice and straight. And yeah, literally when I'm done, just walk over, put a bit of pressure on it the other direction, done, finish.
Yeah.
Move on to the next one.
And I think it's such an easy thing, but it can become such a pain to undo when it's got that many different bloody knots tied in it.
Yeah, and well, it's funny you brought up string lines because the other thing, because I bought that big roll, so what's the standard string line, the little roll one?
100 meters.
50, 100, are they?
Yeah.
So yeah, there was a lot of areas that they ran out, like so. And so this big long 500 meter roll, whatever it was, might be 600, I can't remember, but after half a day, it ended up breaking. Like I was pulling the shit out of this thing. And so I've just gone over the bush and I've broken off. So we never used to have our lines on things. They were always on a bit of dowel. And the dowel was generally about 200, 250 mil long.
Yep.
And you had to twist it.
Yep.
Like, so there was an art to like looping this.
And did you roll it in your hand at the same time?
Yeah. So you
twist it and roll it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's how you kept it tight and you didn't get any knots in it. And so I've gone over the bush and snapped off a branch and bloody got me chisel and like made one out of a piece of bloody stick.
Yep.
And I'm like, no one else at the farm, I'm there on my own, but I'm literally walking from the post to the other end, twisting this thing in my hand, doing it and laughing to myself, thinking, fuck me, like my apprentices wouldn't have a clue how to do any of this. And that's on, like, I need to show them. But would they do anything with that? Probably not, because these days you just go and you buy a string line. But my boss, and even when I started my time, there wasn't a lot of just round string lines. Like you bought string in bulk.
Yes.
Like it used to come in, I don't know, it might even been a kilometre, like, but you bought, you coloured your yellows, your pinks, and your plain, which plain was generally a brickies one.
Yes.
In a massive roll.
Yep.
And you basically started twisting around your own sticks and you made them whatever length you wanted to.
So my plumb bob is still on one of those.
Yeah.
On a piece of 20 mil dowel.
Yeah. Yeah. They were, because the other thing is, like, with these round ones, and like people probably don't, like, they're probably just thinking we're talking shit and it doesn't matter about any of this, but like the round ones, it doesn't matter what you do, but if you're just using a round one, you're pulling it out, you're doing your 7 twists, you're hooking on your post, you're pulling this pressure on it, you're letting it down, you wind it up, they end up twisted.
They do.
That when you have it on a piece of dowel, by doing that rolling in your hand and twisting motion, as you're winding it up, you're taking that twist out of it.
Yeah.
Like,
probably another couple of good points off that. Air hoses. Right?
Yeah.
So for me, for an air hose, and look, we don't use them a lot these days, but I would run it out and not plug it in the compressor. So I'd put the male end at the compressor, run it out, it'd be fully extended, then plug it in, and then you'd release some air out of it before you put the gun in. I did my apprenticeship in Noosa, so 1 grain of sand would stuff a gun.
Yeah.
So every time you change guns, you'd push your nail punch in, let some air out, so it cleans it out.
Yeah.
And then of an afternoon, you would unplug it at the compressor, unplug your gun off it, have it laid out, and wind it up.
Yeah.
So it doesn't get a memory and it doesn't get twists in it. But my power leads are exactly the same. I've got extension leads from when I was an apprentice. And they don't have twists in them.
Yeah.
Because I would lay them out flat and then roll them in and do a half twist with every loop you bring in.
Yeah.
And then of a morning, you wouldn't plug it in, you'd leave it there and you'd run it back out. So you'd run it out one way and reverse roll it up.
Yeah.
And I've got leads in my trailer that hang on the back door that do not have, none of my leads have twists in them.
It sounds like very mundane stuff and like who gives a shit about it really. But mate, I'm exactly the same as you. It shits me when I'm on site early and I'm seeing the boys, all late, seeing them set up or pack up. And again, it's fun. We have to teach our guys why this stuff matters, but like it shits me. You see someone get an air hose out. I hate air like cordless guns. I think every site should still have air.
Yeah,
it's better quality. It punches the nails in better. It's quicker. Just to me, it's just a lot better.
Well, going back to the nails were designed for air guns to be shot in so the glue heated up, where your gas guns and your battery guns don't shoot as fast. So the nails probably haven't been designed or redesigned to suit our new guns. They fit in there and work.
Yeah.
But are they actually working under tension properly like they're supposed to?
Yeah. No, I think every site should have air guns. But seeing people get an air hose out, walk to the compressor, and while it's still all bound up, plug it in, and the thing fucking blows up, and then they're cursing and swearing because it's all knotted up.
Yeah.
And then exactly the same as you. And my boss would scream at me if I started rolling a lead up from the male end. Like, man, would I get a kick in the ass? Or if I started rolling the air hose up from the compressor, I would get a kick in the ass. So exactly like you just said, there was in the morning you rolled out one way, in the afternoon you rolled up the opposite.
Yep.
And shit lasted.
They do.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you can get them so that they just come together properly. Clip them together.
Yep.
I've got a bit of electrical wire tied on mine. You tie them up.
Yeah.
And then you'd hang them up or put them wherever. And you get that. If you do it enough times, you get those loops exactly right.
Yeah.
Not long, short, everything else. Even your leads, they just plug your leads together.
Yeah.
And they last longer. It comes back to, I suppose, looking after our tools and making our tools work for us.
It's pride, isn't it, really? If people are listening to this and going, oh, fucking hell, what a waste of time. It's pride. It's looking after your shit. It's doing those it's that extra 1%.
It's the 1%ers.
Yeah.
Yeah. But your tools is your livelihood. Looking after your tools, like if you're going to buy tools every 3 or 4 years, like your money, your income's coming down.
Yeah.
I've still in my trailer, I've got my 9.25-inch Makita power saw, which is my first power saw when I was an apprentice. And I was doing a weekend job for some friends of the family, and they're building this huge big shed in Pomona. And they put all the big timber posts in, and I went and put all the rails on, hand drove the iron on the outside with the old spring head nails. And as part of my tool allowance, I said to him I wanted a 9.25-inch. And the boss said to me, why do you want a saw that big? I said, well, a big saw can cut little stuff, but a little saw can't cut big stuff.
Yeah. But
I've still got that saw today in my trailer, and if we're cutting big sleepers and stuff, it comes out and we use it.
Yep.
And just looked after it.
Yep. I got 2 9.25s still sitting around the corner over there. Makita ones. They 2,400 watt or 3,400 watt or something.
Something like that. Yeah, they're pretty big.
You give them to an apprentice to use now, and you tell them, you got to hold on to it, mate. You see them starting, their arm kicks up because they're only used to holding this bloody cordless shit.
Yeah. They got brakes on them and everything else, where these things will kick and they'll bite.
Yeah.
You got to, respect your tools.
Yeah, definitely.
See, I suppose.
So you had, back when I was an apprentice, sorry to cut you off, but
you're right.
Like every tool had a purpose.
Yes.
Like now I feel like most tradies are trying to turn up with minimal amount of tools, or like you got these tool companies that are selling these packs, and everyone thinks they can fucking operate from a pack.
Yeah.
Like it's not how it works.
It's not a trippy, definitely not. There's so many variables.
But if you want to be a true craftsman and true tradie, you've got to have tools that are fit for purpose. And you shouldn't be cutting posts, like big posts out, or hardwood sleepers, or chasing in a set of stairs or whatever with a little bloody 5 or 6 inch bloody cordless saw.
No, that's right.
Yeah.
No, I agree with you. There's a reason for them, So the purpose and the why. So yeah.
Yeah.
Another one I got here is, when you're flicking out ceiling battens, or you might be up on scaffold, there's guys at each end and you're flicking lines all the time, tying 2 chalk lines together.
Yeah.
So joining them in the middle, so they both got, the canister each, and then you'll wind it up, flick it, and then you'll wind your end in, his comes out, you move over, flick the next one, and you just keep going backwards and forwards. Yeah. So therefore you haven't got to keep getting up and down and, passing the end of somebody. And the way the ends on them are, you can loop it over and just loop it through itself.
Yeah.
And it just minimises that up and down all the time.
Yeah, that's a cracking one, mate, and saves a lot of time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No. So it's something that we do. Paraffin wax, which basically is the cheapest white candle you can buy. So you just go to Coles and buy some white candles, and it's paraffin wax. Going back to our hand saws, hand planers, I'll put it on my electric planer, my battery planer, and you rub it on, and it just makes your tools glide so much easier. So you might have a handsaw that's a little bit dull, it might need to be sharpened, rub a bit of wax on it, and it just flies through the timber so much easier. Planing aluminium. So sometimes you might have to plane a bit of aluminium for some reason.
Yeah.
Rub that on the bottom of your planer, and it doesn't grab as much, because when you plane the aluminium, even though it's smooth, it's got like a little chatter mark, and it wants to grab on the bottom of your planer.
Yeah. So you're rubbing it on the base plate of your planer?
Yeah, rub it on the base plate of the planer.
Yep.
Rub it on my hand saws. Just makes it work so much easier.
Yeah.
And it's just a cheap candle. It also works well on squeaky door catches, door hinges, and places like that where you can use it. I mean, I use it on my thicknesser.
Yeah.
So whenever we're using the thicknesser, I'll always wind it down and rub it inside, and then put it back to height, and then use it. And if I start getting a bit of drag, I'll rub some more in there. Turn it off, put your hand in there.
Yeah.
And it's just the cheapest white candle you can buy.
Very good. I learned something there.
But I have a couple of those in the drawer of my trailer all the time.
Yeah.
And hand planes. They work great on hand planes. People don't know what they are these days, but if you're using it,
Mate, every good tradesman should have a little hand planer in their tool bag.
yeah. But yeah, so paraffin wax, just cheap white candles, and it just allows everything to slide that bit easier.
Excellent.
It works good on your remember the old DS2 door catches?
Yeah.
And they always squeak.
Sweet.
It's rub that inside there, and takes the squeak out of it.
Very good.
Yeah. So I've written down here, well-organised workspace. When you're working at your saw stools, your saw bench, crap under your feet.
Yeah.
Guys are just trying to work and they're tripping over or walking around something or taking offcuts of the timber off the saw bench and putting it at their feet. Like, make a workspace, not only for safety, but it just makes it that much quicker and easier. You're not worrying about what's under your feet all the time.
Yeah.
I think that's a really big one.
Well, it's also setting up in the correct area.
Yes.
Like, that's just something that was drummed into me constantly. Like, the saw bench didn't go in the same location every single day. No. Like, if you were doing cladding against the feet, the bench followed you around the house.
Yep.
Like, wherever you started that morning, or if you knew that day you were going to get this side and that side done, then it went out in the fresco area, and the next day you might have to move around to the front of the house. So taking out that travel time, running backwards and forwards all the time.
Yeah.
Same with the fit out. Like, you do the ground floor, you get it smashed out, move your saw up to the first floor, like
the top saw. Yeah.
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 But have your buckets or your wheelbarrow beside your saw so that the waste is going straight in there. When it's full, take it to the bin, empty it.
Yeah. Yeah. We have bins.
Yeah.
Just some drums, like
the 40-litre drum or 60-litre bloody plastic.
Yeah, 12-gallon drums.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got a couple of metal ones of those.
Yeah.
And we just put that at the saw bench.
Yeah.
So if it's rubbish, it just goes straight in, because otherwise you're double handling.
Yeah.
You're dropping it on the ground and you got to pick it up again.
Yeah. Yeah. No, we're big on that, having your some sort of buckets, or we just get those, I think the 60-litre buckets from Bunnings. They're cheap as.
Yep.
Or wheelbarrow. Like, so yeah, whatever rubbish you got, as soon as it's full, straight in the bin.
Straight in the bin, yeah. Yeah, and it's preparation, but it's also a big time saver. And it's safer.
Yeah.
That's another big thing, is the safety side of it.
Yeah. And while we're on that, we're cleaning up and stuff. Like, just, again, that's why I'm a big fan of the air. Like, in the afternoon, like, just blow your saws out.
Yeah.
Like, blow your planers out. Clean shit off.
Yeah. The air hose is great for that. Just a big clean up. And then, the drop saws, they just keep that little bit of dust in the bottom all the time, get a slight bit of moisture on them. The next thing, they bind up and they don't want to work. We get the air hose in there.
Yeah.
Just cleans them out. The blowers are good, but they just don't have the same place.
Yeah.
They're good for certain things. So.
Can't beat air, mate.
No.
Every site needs air.
Yep. Denailing timber. So you've just been doing a lot of that recently with your demo work and stuff.
Yeah.
But I'm talking more about if you're doing, say, cladding, weatherboard, chamfer board, mouldings where you might be taking them off, especially in some of the older style homes where you want to reuse them. And denailing is not punching the nail back, but pulling it out through the back of the timber.
Yeah.
Because that more than likely has been puttied and it's been painted, and as soon as you drive it back through the face, it blows the face out.
Yeah. Yeah. So you got to pick and choose the timber, what it's going to be reused for. But yeah, get your nips and curl your nips and pull it through this.
And pulling out the back, where a lot of guys never been taught, they don't understand. So it's a potentially reusable timber becomes,
wasted.
Which is just the way it's been denailed.
Yeah. Yeah, no, we do that with a lot of our claddings and stuff that we reuse. Not with framing. Like framing just gets punched out, but
Yep.
yeah, definitely any chamfer boards, weatherboards, architraves and things on older homes if we're reusing it. Yeah, but in saying that, some timber, like some of the nails are that old that they don't pull through. So if that's the case, then it's a lot of time you're just pulling it till it breaks, and then you're nipping it off at the back.
Yeah. Yeah, it doesn't work all the time, but just, rule of thumb, I suppose.
Yep.
Yeah.
What about the other trades, mate? You had a few for other trades, didn't you, when we've been chatting?
Yeah, well, I think I wrote them down, to be honest. I think it's interesting. I was talking to a plumber the other day, and he raised. I'm looking at putting another plumber on because I just the guy we're using is quite busy and just reliability and stuff like that. So he's a young guy, and he seems really good. But he said to me that he's finding it hard that when he gets to site, that the sites are so minimalistic on leftover timber, he's got nothing to put noggins in with. Because I said to him we'd run the nogs in for him for different areas, and he's like, "Oh, what do you mean?" And I said, "I will mark it out together. We'll shoot the nogs in, and then they're all done properly."
Yeah.
And he said, "Well, the problem he's finding is that he's not getting timber on the sites. He's getting the site, and they're not leaving anything for him. So then he's trying to pinch some timber out of the job somewhere, to put noggins in."
Well, you see, like volume builds and that. I've spoken to some other plumbers and sparkies about this. Like the jobs are that tight. Like especially a volume builder where they're smashing out 100 of the same home. They have a list that has worked 100 times.
Yep.
They're basically cutting up pallets.
Yeah.
To get their timber.
Mm. So as a homeowner, you wouldn't be really happy with a piece of pallet going in your wall, would you?
Well, it comes back to that thing. Like a lot of people just think that, well, it's covered up. Who cares? But I wouldn't want a bit of bloody, like especially with plumbing fixtures. Like I wouldn't want me plumbing fixtures screwed to a bit of bloody 15 mil pallet material.
No, and I suppose it comes back to, is it treated?
Yeah. What about just little ones? Like I've talked about a few of these before, like water testing wet areas.
For flood testing?
Yeah, or just making sure things once your waterproofing's done, you're clogging up your drains and you're putting a pen line on the wall and you're leaving it sit for 48 hours.
Yeah, definitely. You can actually, I've got, I call them balloons, but they pump up. So they go down inside the waste. So your puddle fans in place, you put it down inside there, fill it up. Yeah, we pencil mark it, we timestamp it. So we can take a photo on the camera, on your phone, you have a date and a time on there.
Yeah.
And then, like you said, give it 48 hours. Come back and have a look.
Yeah.
If it's dramatically changed, well, obviously there's a concern, or you'll start to see water leaking through the room somewhere.
Yeah.
So I think that's a really important one.
It has to be done.
Yeah.
Mate, what about flicking lines? Like when you're marking slabs and things out, like getting your square line?
As in, what are we using to flick the lines, or?
No, like getting it, like having square lines, like setting up, like before you go marking out all your walls, squaring the house or the reno up, and then finding your longest hallway or longest room, and putting, like I guess we call them square lines. Like just
that's what they
putting a permanent square line through the job in both directions, like marking it with Nico. Like one of our recent jobs we've just done, Brad, one of our leading carpenters, like he's actually gone through and put nicks in with the grinder in the concrete. So like they're never lost.
They can't get lost.
And then everything throughout the job works off that square line. The Tyler does his set out off it, like anything. Like,
so you're just setting a permanent datum.
Yeah.
That's what you're doing, yeah.
Yeah.
So whenever we're doing flick outs, we'll use black oxide because you don't get a bit of rain on it, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But we all run like a blue, and someone else will, in chalk.
Yeah.
So, there's a couple other colours. But we'll always do it initially in a chalk line. So it gives you the ability, if it doesn't, 3, 4, 5 doesn't work, means that you can tweak it. And then once you've got that position correct, we'll flick it in the black.
Yeah.
But I think that's very important to have your permanent square lines all the time.
Yeah.
That everyone can work back to.
And doing set outs, like when you flick, like not doing in a rush to do your flick all your walls, but actually having to think about like positions of tiles and where joints are going to be and where plumbing fixtures are going to go. Like,
I think that's an overall set out, isn't it? So I think majority of people say set out, they just think about the set out of the frames. But like you said, there's the tiling, there's the niches, where that all comes into play, how tiles finish up in a toilet down a hallway.
Yeah.
Are they offset? And that's another thing that's lost is a lot of tilers don't know how to set out.
Yeah.
Like where do you start? And you might
start with a full tile in a corner, mate.
Yeah, of course, but you might have to start with a half tile so that you finish with a third, whereas if you had a starter with a full, you might end up with this little 20 mil rip somewhere.
Yeah.
And especially when you're doing renovations, the walls might already be there and they may not be square.
Yeah.
So, there might be in a 5 meter wall, it might run 20 mil out. So you don't want to have a tile grout line 50 mil away.
Yeah.
So you got to change that set out so that you've got a bigger piece of tile so it's not as obvious, not so conspicuous.
What about your heights of your noggins in your walls?
As in...
making sure you avoid the joints in your gyp rock and stuff.
Yep. Do you know what the code is for the distance between noggins vertically?
Mate, not off the top of my head.
So the width of the noggins, let's say it's a 70 mil frame, they can't be any more than 70 mil apart vertically. So I know that, you generally flick a line and you put one up and one down, but for some reason, if I have to move, you can't.
Oh, yeah, no.
You can't have them 100 mil apart.
Yeah. But I thought you were talking about spacing, like it's a tall wall.
So it's just the row of noggin themselves, as in the positioning of where they sit, whatever the width is, they can't be any more than that. Yeah. Let's say for some reason that there was a penetration coming through the wall and you had to move that noggin. Well, if you had to move it more than the width, you would have to put two in.
Two, one above and one below.
Yeah.
But just always keeping your rows and nogs, like working out depending on the heights of your ceilings, working out what plasterboard sheets are going to be used. So making sure your row of nogs is like, I like to aim for 200 mil, get it below so you haven't got that row of nogs right where your joint's going to be.
Yeah, that's right.
Like, even though we go through straightened walls and plain things, I don't know, I think it plays havoc on that joint if you've got solid timber behind them.
Yeah, it does. It tends to put a little round in it, doesn't it?
Yeah. What about like waterproofing, like preparation things? Like I know a lot of builders try and do their own waterproofing to save $1.
Yep.
I'm a big fan of just getting a contractor in that knows what they're doing and doing it properly. But like part of the problem on a massive rebuild we're doing at the moment from some builders that didn't do a job correctly was just using blackjack for waterproofing.
In a bathroom?
No, on a retaining wall.
Oh, on a retaining wall.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. And was it a block wall?
Yeah. Yeah. I see it all the time. I'm not a fan. I think the only thing blackjack should be used for is on your posts in the ground.
Yeah. Which is another good point is blackjacking your posts and they go in the concrete because you get the reaction from the calcium in the post and they'll start to want to rust away at that ground height or at that top of concrete.
Yeah, the calcium in the concrete.
Yeah. It causes a reaction with the post.
Yeah. No, generally anything we put in the ground, whether it's steel or timber, we'll always get blackjacked.
Yeah, we do
seal it up
on our timber as well.
Yeah. What about like putting membranes on your floors when you got timber flooring that's close to the ground?
Yep. So
we've been doing it for a little while. We got a job coming up at the moment. So our standard practice now is like any floor any floor that's got an undercroft area, like we put geofab down, we put 100 mil of gravel down and make it all nice and tidy so weeds and shit don't grow. But and that just having that gravel in there allows the ground to air a lot better. But recently, like our timber flooring companies started refusing to lay timber floors unless we're putting a waterproof membrane over the floor that they're laying it on. So any moisture that possibly does come up through the existing timber floor or through the particle board substrate doesn't get into their good timber.
Yep.
And so I guess they're telling me that there's been changes in the code and things, but for a long time they've, depending on the floor substrate and stuff, like, when they lay timber on top of concrete, they always put the plastic down and seal it off. But yeah, you should be putting a waterproof membrane down, a roll-on sealer type one on your timber floors before you lay your timber over the top.
Yeah, okay. Going back to your slabs, there's a bit of sort of controversy on that because if you're doing an overlay on a concrete slab, which is glue fixed, like a T&G floor, so you're putting a 15 mil ply down, it's supposed to be glued to your concrete. So if you've got a plastic membrane down,
glued or it's got to be all supposed to be pinned. Like I think it's got to be pinned at I think it's 300 mil square or something.
Yeah, so it's been a couple of years. The last time we did, we had to put a waterproof membrane on the slab that was compatible with Ultraset. and then we had to notch trowel
Yeah.
and put our ply down and pin it as well.
Yeah.
So we drilled it, and then we put a sealant into the hole, pinned it down, and then we obviously give that a light sand.
Yeah.
And then we notch trowel and put the timber floor down over the top.
Yeah. I think there's so many different scenarios. Like, I think that's why it's really important. You got to have a good relationships with your contractors, good relationship with your reps, and really assessing every job.
Yep.
Because depending on your location, the amount of moisture, whether it's a subfloor, whether it's a slab on ground, whether it's a new house, old house, like there's so many variables. So everyone's aim should be to do best practice. Like, sit back, assess every single situation, every single job.
Yeah.
Have a conversation with your trades, the suppliers, whoever it is, and make sure that you're basically building every single job the best you possibly can.
Yeah, achieving the best you can. And one of the things I wrote in here was about accuracy, aiming for the 1%er. Do 1%er better today than you did yesterday.
Yeah, definitely.
And I think that if the industry took that on board, we'd have a lot better industry.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. 100%. Like, just get rid of this I think it's old fashioned, like near enough's good enough.
Yep.
Like, there's too much of that in the industry. Like, near enough is not good enough.
No, we need to be building houses that last longer. Like our grandfathers were building houses that are still up to date.
Well, not just last longer, but look after the occupants.
Yeah, yes.
Like people should be able to live in a home and know that the home's not going to contribute to diseases or health issues. Like, making sure the products go into them are installed correctly, that they're fit for purpose, that they're going to last the test of time, that they're appropriate for that zone or that location. Like, there is a lot to it. Like, I think so many trades just feel that it's one size fits all.
Yeah. And I think we need to be more conscious of all those things.
Yeah.
Which is education.
Yeah.
Which is what you're trying to achieve, or what you are achieving. That's what you're putting out there.
Yeah.
But I think that a lot more people should be taking that on board and just trying to improve.
Yeah. Yeah, no, look, Craig, well, definitely a massive shout out for you to come back today. The Godfather. So Craig is look, if you want to spend some time with Craig, hang out with him, make sure you come to the Level Up experience on the 30th of May. Craig's going to be there. He's actually going to be doing a panel discussion with a few other builders about all types of things to do with building, as well as running a building business. But yeah, Craig truly is the godfather of building. He knows a lot of tips and hints, and he is definitely open to having conversations and sharing and educating people. So thanks for coming, mate.
Thanks for having me, mate. It's always a pleasure. I like coming down and having a chat.
Yeah, no, it's awesome. Well, go to my website, duaynepearce.com, purchase your tickets for the Level Up experience. Make sure you subscribe, like, share, everything with this podcast so that we can continue to make this Australia's #1 construction podcast. See you on the next one.
Are you ready to build smarter, live better, and enjoy life? Then head over to livelifebuild.com/elevate to get started.
Everything discussed during the Level Up podcast with me, Duayne Pearce, is based solely on my own personal experiences and those experiences of my guests. The information, opinions, and recommendations presented in this podcast are for general information only, and any reliance on the information provided in this podcast is done at your own risk. We recommend that you obtain your own professional advice in respect to the topics discussed during this podcast.